The second arena in the TimeWise framework is attention. Attention speaks to the fact that at any given time, we're attending to certain things. If you slow down right now and even pay attention to what's happening internally for you, you're probably in a room or you're in a car or wherever you are. You've got a certain percentage of your attention probably on some of those things. Maybe there's some attention that's on what I'm saying. Maybe you're also thinking about something else. We're constantly making choices around where we are attending and where we are not attending. And it is a choice, meaning the second you become aware of it, you can redirect your attention. You could right now, for example, close out some of those open loops in your mind and just focus on what you're listening to. Or you could stop listening to this right now and focus on something else. You have this profound ability to direct your attention. And one of the problems with our productivity way of thinking about things is it's often we're only really paying attention to the external realities of what's going on. We're not really paying attention to the internal. But I'm sure you've been in scenarios where maybe you're at an event, maybe you're watching a movie, or you're at a dinner party, and you're in your head about something, and you're there, but not really. Because your attention is not actually focused on what's taking place. Your attention is focused on something that's taking place internally. So it's not just what we're paying attention to from a standpoint of what we're saying yes to, what we're focusing on externally. It's a much more holistic way of thinking about our attention. And this is an extremely important aspect of living into human time. Because what we often call time management can be misleading, because time management makes us think that time is just some commodity externally that we can move around or get things to slide into like it's a Tetris game or something. But time management is actually fundamentally attention management. You can have time carved out on a calendar for a thing, but if your attention is somewhere else, it doesn't matter. So when we're thinking about our own potential and the potential of our time, we're actually thinking fundamentally about how we're stewarding our attention, which is, again, in a sense, what our life becomes. We're living through our journey, all the different relationships we have, and a core area of agency we have is where we choose to direct our attention. And oftentimes that sense of attention, that agency around attention, can feel a bit lacking, like it's not our own. And this is such a fundamental turning point for many of us when we realize that our attention actually is our own, and in many ways it's our birthright. Machine time has distorted this arena of attention. We often don't even really perceive how much agency we have around this particular arena. You think of the chaotic busyness that we're often caught up in. Rather than making choices, we're just reacting to things. Things are just coming at us and we're just ping-ponging here, there, all these other things. We have such fractured attention. And our attention, when we're actually becoming conscious of our attention, it's often just in an external reality. When in fact, one of the most consequential places where our attention matters is internal. Because a lot of our attention is spent on the stories that are playing out in our mind, on the dialogues that are playing out in our mind. Where we're directing our attention at any given time, a lot of the actual places where we get lost, it's an internal game, not so much an external one. We also have an easy time of getting hijacked around our attention, because when we're in this kind of a crazy, frenetic way of approaching life, and then on top of that, we have all these layers of technology with all these bells and notifications and all these things, we're constantly, like almost being in Las Vegas casino, being misdirected towards that which creates the most emotional anxiety for us, or that which maybe feels like it will calm that emotional anxiety. So we're constantly feeling our attention being directed towards the things that feel most emotionally charged, or just the loudest. And as a result, we can feel very fragmented, right? If you've ever been in a scenario where you've got a lot of people trying to talk to you all at the same time, it's really hard to stay centered and to actually hear what any of them are saying, because there's just too much noise. And that's often what our lives can feel like, is that there's just so much noise that our attention, we can't even make sense of what's really going on. We can't even make sense of where it is that we should pay attention to or not, because of this tremendous amount of noise that's come out of machine time. We also end up finding that we ultimately actually have crowdsourced what it is that our life is composed of. If our attention is not our own, if we're not making choices around our attention, then what ends up happening is we form a largely reactionary position, and people will define our lives for us. They'll tell us what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to. It's not like all of a sudden our attention goes away. It's just our attention goes to things that are not our own. And lastly, we confuse this feeling of stimulation with significance. This is so subtle, but it's so important. One of the reasons we confuse action with progress is because it's concrete. I've worked with very high-level entrepreneurs who love mowing their lawn, even though it's not the best use of their time, ultimately, within the perspective of maybe the return on investment from a fulfillment standpoint, or even just kind of what's the best use of their time. Now, I'm not against anyone mowing their lawn if they want to mow their lawn or they enjoy mowing their lawn, but one of the reasons people do enjoy mowing their lawn is because there's such an immediate feedback loop. And what machine time does is it focuses on those really short-term feedback loops, where we find ourselves optimizing around checking things off rather than attending to what actually matters most. If you take, for example, a relationship, say it's a marriage of sorts, a married relationship is never going to demand attention until it's really bad or things are really rough. The most important things rarely ever demand our attention, but the urgent things do. Because the urgent things are very concrete, and they can feel like they're just yelling at us. And add to this the fact that we're already so frayed in all these different directions. It's kind of a perfect storm for us to feel as if we really don't have agency, when in fact we have a profound level of agency around our attention. Human time, it's an opposite direction, is where you choose instead of react. You start by paying attention to your internal experience, and then you move outwards. And you focus on not what's urgent, but on what really matters most to you, which requires a certain level of trust of self, trust of the process of life. You also start building a sort of coherence, because instead of just reacting, you're directing your life. So you rediscover the plot, as it were. You actually can see what's happening, where it is you're going. It's very, very empowering. You stop chasing the things that don't actually matter, the metrics that don't actually matter, the metrics that don't actually serve what leads you to become more fully yourself, that leads you to doing your most important work. And that leads you to this deep sense of fulfillment and peace. And your life becomes focused on the things that actually lead to your growth. And like we said in some of the other videos, wherever we go, there we are. And as we become, we naturally end up increasing our impact and our receptivity in terms of taking in all the goodness that life has to offer, because we do the work, that ongoing work with our attention. One of the things that's so difficult about attention is that we have to make choices. We can have this illusion of seemingly infinite progress, or like that we can do all the things, we can get everything done. But of course, that's not true. So we're all stuck in this difficult situation where we have seemingly infinite potential, but we're very finite. We don't have the capacity to do everything. And so we have to make choices. Some of those choices are internal, like I said earlier, but some of those choices are actual commitments, practically, in the world. So, as you begin reclaiming your sense of attention, a simple practice that I want to leave you with. Each day, moving forward, choose one sacred thing that you're going to focus on that day. What is the one thing that if at the end of the day you could say, I did that, you'd be able to look back and say, that was a really good day. I'm really, really happy with where I invested my time in that particular day. What is that one thing? That one most important thing? If you start doing this practice, in the beginning, it might be a little painful, but you'll also experience the freedom that comes from actually naming what it is that you're aiming at, and then having the benefit on the back end of being able to say, I actually did that thing. It's a simple practice that compounds day after day, week after week, month after month.